Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Life Paranormal Researchers podcast. I'm your host, Russell Reynolds, and we got an exciting show tonight. My guest tonight is well known with his brother, Carl Johnson, who were the very first team to ever step foot in the Conjuring house before my cousins Ed and Lorraine Warren were. He's also a demonologist. He's had his share of experiences with paranormal as a kid. You could see him on the show A Haunting, and he's got a couple books released as well. We'll talk about that tonight. Without further ado, let me bring him on, Keith Johnson.
Hello
Hey,
there.
Keith.
How you doing?
Good. Welcome to the show.
It's good to see you, cuz.
Good to see you too, cuz.
Oh, how you been since we last saw each other?
Good. Been busy. Been working.
Oh yeah, well, gotta pay the bills, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. But hopefully this will be your main source of income someday soon.
maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So how's the weather there in Missouri?
It was cold and it's been cold in the morning. We've had frost the past couple mornings, and then it warmed up today. Hit 70 today.
Oh, well, we're gonna get that weather Sunday and Monday, Tuesday. We're gonna get that weather up here.
Yeah, it's been on and off here. We're supposed to get some rain on Monday.
Ah, yeah. Well, we've got the fall season weather around here. I guess the leaves have turned where you are too, right?
Yeah, they're just starting.
Uh-huh. Yeah, a little bit warmer where you are, I think.
Yeah, Midwest usually stays warm till about it gets cold sometimes in September. I mean, I've seen it hit 30 degrees in September,
Oh, really? Wow.
but we've been having it's unusual warm this time of year for October. Usually
Yes.
we're down to
Yeah.
30.
Right. Same thing with us. It's going to be unusually warm. It's going to be unusually warm this coming few days. But hey, the weather's the weather. We have to accept it.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah. So we're at a big convention recently.
Yeah, the one
We're
in
up for each
America.
other. Yes. Yeah. What did you think of it all?
Oh, I thought it was good. They put on a real good Paracon.
They did. They really did. And we did get to hook up in person for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting to meet my podcast guests in
Yeah.
person.
You met a few of them there, didn't you? You met
Yeah,
Father Bob Bailey.
Ernie Atwell. Let's see, Rob and Sarah from Get Haunted, which I met Rob when he was out here in Missouri over the summer,
Uh-huh.
and then Dave Giuliano, who was my guest last week.
Uh-huh. He's a good guy. He's been in this field for a long, long time. And I like that, communicating with somebody in the 1990s and they're still communicating. I remember that's when I first got to know Dave Giuliano, and that's wonderful. I like staying power. I like people and groups that have the staying power.
Mhm.
Which groups a lot of groups come and go, but when you're around for as long as some people like Dave Giuliano, myself, it's like that says something. That says you're either crazy or you're finding new stuff all the time.
And it's good too for like us younger generation to learn from you guys because
Hmm.
you guys did it without the equipment.
That is true. We did it without the equipment, and believe it or not, sometimes I miss those days. I really do miss those days when we had like minimal equipment, and you just did what you could with what you got, and that it was kind of a lot simpler then too. And I think, of course, there's a lot of more high stuff tech out now, obviously, but I think we did just as well with the low key stuff back then. And there was kind of like a hominess about it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, you're basically going in there with a notebook and taking notes, and
Yes, yeah. And we actually had cameras that used film.
yep,
You had to wait till you developed them to see what came out if you got any anomalies on them. There was no such thing as just looking and deleting, looking and deleting, looking and deleting. Do you know there's a name for that in photography? Looking and deleting over and over.
with
It's
that.
called it's called chimping.
Okay.
It's called chimping. I guess that's because it's like a chimpanzee or something, looking up and down or something. But that's actually the technical name for it, chimping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did our we do our share of chimping, looking at if anything's come out. But yeah, I know it was delayed before you get results. Now you get instant results and everything like that. But I don't know. Sometimes I get very nostalgic for the original days of investigating, which with me was as you know, was a long time ago.
Yep.
Hmm. You know what I really liked at the convention too? I liked meeting your dad. You and your dad there.
Oh yeah.
That was the first time I met your dad, and
Yep.
you make a good team. You both of you've got character together.
Yeah, we work good together on cases and stuff like that. We've been doing it a while. I've been doing it a little longer than he has, and then with his abilities, I told him I was like, "You need to put those abilities to use. You come with me, and we'll go handle cases." And
Yeah, but he's got the intuition, right? He's an intuitive.
yep,
Yeah, so he can feel something there, and you can verify it
yep,
scientifically, right?
yep.
That's cool. That's really cool. Um, what's some of the big findings you've had recently? Just curious.
Uh, Big findings was with our Estes method at the orphanage event we did.
Oh, cool.
Uh,
Yeah.
Raven's Eye Paranormal. Julie and those guys were in the courthouse, and my group and I were in the library part, and my one member Jen was under the Estes, and I was asking questions, and we were letting the audience around the room ask questions. Well, two of the tour guides were running back and forth, and they said that we were saying all the exact same things,
Mm-hmm.
and both Estes methods were matching up.
That's cool. That's really cool because you have no awareness of what's being said.
Nope.
You're just listening with headphones, and it comes through, and you're responding, and that kind of verifies it when you can get a good response, like a good rapport going.
Yep, and especially with us in two different buildings, so that's
Oh,
what
you
makes.
were in two different buildings. Well,
Yeah, we were in. I was in the library, and Julie from Raven's Eye and her group were in the courthouse
uh-huh.
doing it.
But you were getting a lot of the same responses,
Yep,
huh?
we were getting the same answers.
That's good. That's very good. Now, I want to know, was your when you've been investigating together with your dad, has he ever come across like something that's like, well, overwhelming, is kind of very negative or something like that? Because I know a lot of people who are sensitive have to really ground themselves and learn to tune that out over the years because
Yeah,
it can get overwhelming.
he has with, and that's why he wears a lot of less crosses like that cross you saw him with at the Warrens Paracon. That's been blessed by the Roman Catholic
Uh-huh.
Church. So, and we get
Yes, I
those
for
from
that.
Sister
Yeah.
Sarah,
Hmm.
and so she blesses all that and sends it to us. Blessed salt, holy water, metals. So yeah, he's that one case we did in Oklahoma, he did when we came in because the guy was doing demonic worshiping in his house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was using a Buddhist sing bowl for demonic practices, doing several other
Wow.
rituals, book on witchcraft on how to sacrifice and kill people.
Jeepers.
So, and it was my dad and I that went on that case. We didn't know Raven's Eye Paranormal yet, and the rest of my team couldn't make it because they all had to work. It was a short notice emergency.
Sounds like it was pretty intense and potentially dangerous.
Yeah, it was, especially that figure in the hallway when the camera started sitting there pulsating, and I went back there to check it out, and here's this shadow figure standing at the end of the hallway looking at me,
Wow.
and it was about 6 foot tall, and it dropped down to about 5 foot and come running at me,
Oh my
disappeared
God.
at my legs, and I ended up with 3 scratches on my arm.
Wow. That's a telltale sign if there ever was.
Bev says she has a question if we don't mind.
Not at all. I don't
Sure.
mind. You don't mind. I don't mind.
Nope, I don't mind at all. Feel free to post your questions in the chat.
Yeah. We'll do our best to answer them, won't we?
Yep. But yeah, that was one of the tough cases. Then we did another case. This was several years ago in Jeff City. That was a bad demonic case.
Wow. Do you get a lot of them? Like more recent?
Hey, recently we've been getting called for quite a few of them, but with all the negativity going on in the world with the wars and then murders and all that, so it's sparking up all that negative energy around.
Yeah. Sign of the times. Sign of the times. Definitely. Definitely. I was a lot younger when I attended a satanic ceremony, and but that was by invitation. I didn't like kind of work my way in like Carl Kolchak and Night Stalker. I was invited to document this particular one, and it did get pretty intense. They get pretty intense, and it was one of the members did start flipping out. But fortunately, nobody was injured that night.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So I have never snuck into a ceremony that was going on. I know some people have, and they do those things, and but that can be very very dangerous. And sometimes you don't know what you're up against, especially when it's got cult aspects, and it's very very dangerous dealing with cults and things like that.
Yeah, because I mean, they're opening that door, and if you're not familiar with it, you're an easy target.
Yes, but on a lighter note, uh, if you want to call that a lighter note, I found it fascinating that you actually greeted or saw the apparition of Jesse James himself,
Yep,
and he was recognizable to you.
yep.
And
Yeah, that was.
he's related to you, right?
I wish.
Which I know so many people are related to you. So many people are related. I was wondering if Jesse James was one, but you did see him. You did, and
Yep.
knowing a lot about him, having studied him, you did recognize the apparition. You mentioned that it was him as a much younger man.
Yeah, he was in a younger form because you can compare it to his younger days in the one picture that he took without the beard and everything, and it
Hmm.
looks like a young Jesse James.
And was this more residual, or would you say it was intelligent? That there seemed to be some recognition there?
I think it was more residual. He grew up in that house. That was his birth home.
Yeah,
So his mom lived there till the day she died. Frank lived there till he died. So he would come back to there because he was happy there.
yeah, yeah. That's true. It's not necessarily the place that was known for trauma, but here we have the question: when you start investigating the paranormal, what do you start off with before the investigation and after the investigation, so that nothing can harm our attachments? I can answer that, and then would you mind answering that too?
Sure.
Would you? Yeah. What I do is I try to spend time in prayer. Sometimes I don't always do as much as I should. I should spend a great deal of time, or at least more time than I do. Sometimes you rush out, you're getting all your equipment together, and you just focused on that. But I do, especially if I'm not driving. If I'm not driving, I do try to spend time in prayer during the trip over there. And sometimes other people are laughing, and it's a big joyride and everything. But I do try to prepare myself spiritually. I do spend time in prayer. Certain scriptures I read, especially Ephesians 6, putting on the armor of God. And I do believe some entities, intelligent entities, can perceive that. If you prayed putting on the armor of God, I do believe some entities are aware of that, because I have been kept, by the grace of God, very safe when I've prayed, read Ephesians 6 and prayed. And I also very actually word this precisely when we are at a place, and especially when we leave a location, my team members and I, we like to say nothing is allowed, nothing unholy or negative is allowed to attach itself to us or follow us home. Only that which is positive, angelic, and of the light. And of course, being Christian faith, I pray this in the name of Jesus. But of course, anybody who, whatever their beliefs are, should concentrate on the positive and make it firm. You don't have to, cuss or shout somebody out, but just make it very definite that you're not allowing any hitchhiker, so to speak, anything to attach itself and follow you from that residence, especially anything that's negative at all. I mean, you have spirit guides with you, and they will protect you as well. So that's what we do to protect ourselves, and try to do things, or not to do things like overly provoking, just to get a reaction and things like that. Not certainly not cussing things out or calling them names.
Yep.
Um, it's okay to you know acknowledge that an entity may be there, as long as you don't make it like, okay, we're on a showdown now, that kind of attitude. Is similar with you, Russell?
Yep. It's pretty much the same with me also. Grounding myself before I go in and getting myself mentally prepared, especially if it's a demonic case.
Yes.
With the darker stuff, you have to be mentally prepared for something like that, because if you're not, you're gonna get hurt.
That's true. That's true. And I think a lot of people are in denial of that there are really negative entities out there. And obviously, I'm all for healthy skepticism. And I'm sure you are too, healthy skepticism. So people don't go believing every little noise or every little shadow is a demonic entity or something's coming to attack you. There is certainly room for healthy skepticism, as long as it doesn't become closed-minded skepticism. And I've seen both extremes. I've seen people scream if there's somebody, what was that? Was that? Oh, that was just me. I just cleared my throat or something like that, and they start to panic. And but on the other hand, you shouldn't like try to block out every little piece of evidence. Like, come in with the mindset there's got to be an alternate explanation for this. It's got to be mundane, and there can be no room for supernatural. Why are they there then? Why are they even investigating, if it's unless it's just to prove that there's nothing there of a paranormal nature? And I do know people who are not necessarily believers in the spirit realm at all, and yet there's this little edge that they're kind of hoping that there is the spiritual realm there, and that they will find actual evidence of it. So that's when it's healthy skepticism. They're not going to accept everything, every little feeling, every little sensation, or every little noise, but they are looking for actual evidence that can be documented and can be
Mhm.
experienced. And that's Harry Houdini himself was like that. He debunked so many mediums, and this is in the age of spiritualism. Spiritualism was very rampant in Houdini's era. But as many seances and fake mediums as he debunked, as he called out, he knew he was always open-minded enough to accept something that's a possibility. For example, he became good friends with Arthur Conan Doyle, author of Lost World and the Sherlock Holmes series, and so on. And Lady Doyle, Arthur Conan Doyle's wife, was a light trance medium, like Lorraine Warren, a light trance
Okay.
medium. And she would do automatic writing. And of course, he was Harry Houdini was devastated when his mother passed away suddenly, and he was always hoping to contact her. Now, Lady Doyle did automatic writing; that was her specialty, and she wrote down, without even looking at the paper, she wrote down something along the lines of, "Harry, I love you. I'm still with you, thinking of you." And at first, he was elated, but then he kind of, his skepticism, the skeptical part of his persona came forth, and he started thinking, analyzing it. My mother never. My mother. Oh, you're very welcome. Well, Bev,
Well,
very welcome. There you go. Yeah, but his mother didn't speak English. She only spoke Yiddish, and she certainly couldn't write fluently in English. And she never called him Harry. Harry Houdini was his stage name. He took Houdini from Houdin, the great illusionist, French illusionist, and as his first name was Eric, and so she always called him Eric. She never called him Harry, his stage name. So
mhm.
then, he was very disappointed when he realized it was most likely not his mother coming through. But he always kept that in mind, that there was at least some possibility that he could communicate with the other side. And of course, and when he was on his deathbed, he told his wife Bess that if he could, he would come forth and he would communicate with her. And they gave each other a code. They had a secret code, and she herself, Bess, said that he did never come through. I don't know if they were in the last year of her life, whatever, if anything did come through. I'm not really sure of that, but basically, she did say in the final seance, "Thus I snuff out the candle." So
Nice. Yeah, I never heard that about Harry Houdini.
yeah, yeah, he was big debunker, and you know, my grandmother did get to see him.
Oh
My
wow.
grandmother, yeah, and he came to Providence. He came to Providence in the early 1920s and put on a show there. It was actually Thanksgiving week. It was actually Thanksgiving week, and she went to see him. Is either on Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving. She came to Providence and saw Harry Houdini perform his illusions and everything. And boy, when I was really young, when I was a young kid, I just, my brother and I just barraged her with questions. What did he say? What did he do? What did he look like? I said, well, so long ago, I don't remember. It was the 1920s. I don't remember everything he did, but it's just amazing that my grandmother, Harry Houdini, and H.P. Lovecraft were all under the same roof.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because Harry Houdini was ghostwriting. He was ghostwriting for Houdini, and so of course he got free tickets to come to see his performance. So all three of them were under the same roof, and really proud of that. Uh, that my family legacy. Although I wasn't there, I was a little before my time. I wish I'd been there. Just
Right.
all this, but
I did see at the Paracon you had some books released.
yes, yes I did, and I've got one of them. I've got one of them here. It's the Paranormal Realities series, books 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, I was selling them there. And Paranormal Realities, of course, as the title connotates, they're reality stories. They're stories that I've experienced, true stories, and other people that I've talked to, and I've been involved in a lot of these situations, a lot of these cases. And for example, here's one: a visit from the Reaper. There was That's a case where a family actually experienced something that looked like the Grim Reaper. That was very tall, ominous looking, and seemed to be a hooded figure that really resembled our vision of the Grim Reaper. So that's what I refer to it as. And here's is this picture of, this is in Chepachet, Rhode Island, and it's a woman. It's a portrait of a woman, and nobody knows who she is, but she's known as the Forlorn Lady. And in this restaurant, this tavern on Main in Chepachet, Rhode Island, she supposedly, at least somebody was sensitive, looking at her picture and said that she's waiting for her lover that never returned home. He was off on some journey or maybe war or something, and he never came back. So that's why she's got that expression. But things do happen in that place, the Tavern on Main. They've had salt shakers suddenly move. People have looked and they've seen a what looks like a little boy running like towards the bathroom, and he's in old fashioned clothes. And they get a glimpse of him when they turn around, he's not there. So if you can get that table with her picture there, that's where it's the most active in Tavern on Main. So if you come to Rhode Island, that's where we got to go. We got to check out that place.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's so many places I would love to check out. Obviously, associated with anything associated with Jesse James. If I come down there to Missouri, there, and
Yeah, we got some places that are associated with it. In fact, we're getting ready to go back to one here very soon where Jesse used to hide out,
wow,
and the great grandparents used to hide him out in the barn, him and his gang, when they were riding through to go back to his boyhood home.
really? See, that's
So,
something I didn't know. In fact, until I was fairly well acquainted with the story of Jesse James, but until I talked to you, I had no idea that these places were actually haunted.
yep,
That people have had experiences there, and that really thrilled me when I found out there's something really active about the story. There's something really, it's not just historical information. It's actually something that's very active today, and you can experience things.
yep. And
That's liveliness to it.
a lot of residual out there too, as far as gunshots and cannon fire, and because there was the Battle of Crooked River out there, which was the Mormon battle, big
Hmm.
Mormon battle that killed one of the head Mormon guys when he come back to Missouri after
Wow.
he ran out. And our client had said that she seen somebody that resembled a Pinkerton agent, an apparition of a Pinkerton agent
Oh, really?
standing out in the field,
Wow.
which not uncommon with Jesse and his crew riding through there. Pinkertons were after him all the
Yeah.
time. So,
Yeah. Yeah. The Pinkertons had a real vendetta against Jesse and his gang. Unfortunately, they didn't always hit their mark. The innocent had to suffer for that too, as case with his mother.
yep. And his little brother that got killed by that firebomb, Archie Samuel.
Oh.
He was when the Pinkertons threw the firebomb through the window. It landed on the floor right next to her and Archie, and she grabbed it to throw it in the wood stove. And when it blew half her hand off, and it killed him.
Oh dear. How old was he again?
He was only 15.
Oh dear.
So, and then Jesse's stepfather, they took him and hung him from a tree in the yard.
Hmm.
The
I heard
tree's
he
not there
he
anymore.
survived, but he was very seriously injured, and he was never right since.
No, actually, he passed. He died.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he died. But he was a big time professor. He had money in the William Jewell College here in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
He put money into that, and they came there looking for Jesse, and they strung him up the tree because he didn't know where Jesse was or
Yeah.
Frank.
It's actually a tragedy that they got away with it too.
Yep.
Apparently, as far as I know, that there was no real legal repercussions, against the Pinkertons for doing this, and
Yeah, it's rough. especially the one courthouse that we did an event at down in Warrensburg, Missouri.
Hmm.
They had one of the James gang, I think it was Frank, in an outside jail cell so everybody could see him.
Oh yes, yeah.
And then they did it again in the courthouse in Gallatin, Missouri. After they robbed that bank, they had Frank James in a jail cell out there in the yard so people could see they had one of the James gangs locked up.
So that was they were on exhibit like a zoo creature, huh? A
Yep.
curiosity.
Yep.
Oh wow. As my dad used to always say, man's inhumanity to man.
Yep. And I mean, there's conspiracy theories that Jesse never died, that he faked his death.
Yeah, that's another aspect I find very interesting. What's your opinion of that?
I mean, I think it's possible because they said Jesse would never take off his guns and turn his back on anybody.
Hmm.
Jesse was the type Fords knew not to draw on Jesse because Jesse would shoot him dead. Jesse was
Right.
quick.
Hmm.
But they said Jesse wasn't the crazy one of the bunch. It was more Frank. If you looked at Frank the wrong way, he'd shoot you between the eyes and not think twice of it.
Really? Oh, it's too bad because he was rather cultured too. As far from what I know, he could easily recite the Bible and Shakespeare, and very very knowledgeable. And yet I guess he had this hair trigger temper too. And I don't know too much as much about Frank as I know about Jesse. And but I'm glad you told me that.
And I know Frank, he turned himself in after Jesse supposedly died,
Hmm.
and he hung up his guns and he went with Cole Younger after they got out and they were doing trick shooting with the circus for a while. And then he moved back to the boyhood home, lived there with his wife, and he would give tours of the house.
Hmm.
And then after Frank died, the grandson took it over and lived there from, I think, like up to 1953, and then he passed away.
Really?
Because some of the house, if you go in the house, some of it's modern and some of it's still from the 1800s.
Hmm.
Because it's got power in the one side of the house and where the kitchen is now, and then the rest of the house has no power.
Wow. Even today, the rest of the house has no power.
It has no power. They won't even let you do flash photography in there because of everything being original.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow.
And the tour guide was telling me that she'd come up there, it'd be getting towards dark, and she'd come to lock the house up, walk in, and the kerosene lanterns lit.
Oh, wow.
And it's
Goodness.
one of them old style kerosene lanterns, and it's got no kerosene in it anymore.
And yet it was lit.
Yep, it was lit.
Oh,
And then when
goodness.
we were there, the 2 rocking chairs in the living room, my dad tapped me on the shoulder. I looked down, here's 2 rocking chairs just sitting there going like this, back and forth behind us.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Too
And
bad you couldn't put that on video, huh?
I know they wouldn't let us bring any ghost equipment. We s we snuck a digital voice recorder in
Hmm.
and got some EVPs.
And what kind of EVPs were they? Were they class A, class B, would you say?
There's a couple Class A, more Class B, though. We got a lot more in the museum because that's where a lot of their artifacts are, the guns and Jesse's, wife's dress is in there, Frank's wife's dress is in there, and I was by Frank's wife's dress, and I had the recorder running, and when I played it back, you could hear a woman humming a tune.
Oh, that's so. That's interesting.
And then we were looking, they've got just the top of Jesse's casket on display before they moved
Oh,
to a new one, and, I got I think it was a woman, another woman, kinda couldn't make it out what she said, it was kinda like a whispery type voice. I tried to amplify it, but there was too much background noise in the back to try to make out what she said.
yeah.
and by his guns, I think we caught a man saying, "Those are my guns," which
Oh, wow.
which are Jesse's guns.
Uh-huh.
They're there. They had his guns, his boots.
Mhm.
So, and then I think we caught captured another one over by Bloody Bill Anderson's picture in the
Oh,
museum,
yes.
and there was another man, and I think it said general if I remember right,
Mhm.
which he was a general for the Quantrill Raiders. So,
Yes. Oh, that's pretty amazing.
and he too is buried out here in Missouri. Bloody Bill Anderson. He's buried
Oh,
in
is he?
Liberty, Missouri. Yep, him and uh, Robert Ford and his brother are both buried all in the same cemetery.
Is that so? Uh,
We were
so
gonna go out there one night, but law enforcement wouldn't let us out there after dark. So,
uh, it's too bad. But they got to take their precautions too.
yep.
There's a bunch of crazy people who are going around.
Yeah, they down there, they had a history, a lot of, vandalism on graves and stuff.
Yeah. Same
St.
thing.
St. Joe's another one too that's the same way.
Yeah. Same thing here. Same thing here in the East Coast. Like a lot of cemeteries are ripe with vandalism and things like, especially if they get a reputation. And
Mhm.
that's which came first, the chicken or the egg. Some cemeteries
Right.
reputation for being haunted, so people come in and they start doing summonings and rituals and everything, and then they actually become haunted. The activity picks up because of the attention. It's the law of attraction and recognition and things like that.
That's like we got one here, Slagle Cemetery, which is an urban legend known to be haunted, and kids go out there and they try to summon something up. They try to summon Mr. Slagle, which he's the wrong man you really wanna call up because he was not a very good man when he was alive. He was a mean, nasty man.
Oh, wow.
5 of his wives mysteriously disappeared. They
Oh,
found one hanging from the bridge.
oh. How long ago was this? Did he live?
This was eight late 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
and, he married his 6th wife, and they never had any evidence convict him because he was also a judge.
Oh.
So, he was accused of killing him because it just all of a sudden vanished. They ruled the one hanging from the bridge a suicide, but then when he married his 6th one, the brother of the 6th wife heard that she had married him and knew about his reputation, so he came out to kill Slagle. Well, Slagle got the drop on him with a double barrel and shot him in the back and killed him and buried
Oh.
him in the road up there, and they don't know where his body is today. But you go up to that cemetery, it's haunted. I've captured several things out of there, stuff on thermal,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of EVPs. I got a spirit we did a spirit box session, and I asked, "Who is are you here with us, Mr. Slagle?" And a voice comes on and says, "Henry Slagle," which was Mr. Slagle's son.
Uh-huh.
He was also buried in that cemetery.
Oh, so identified the son, Henry Slago. Huh?
Yep. And there's a girl that's buried in there. She was killed by a drunk driver, her ex-boyfriend, drunk driving when she was in high school, and she's buried in that cemetery, and we captured her voice crying by her gravestone.
Uh,
So she's not at rest. I don't think she's happy there. Her mom had her put there because her mom lives up the road,
yeah.
so she could be close by to her daughter.
Very, very sad. And
And
all you
she runs
can do is pray
everybody
for
out.
them.
Yep.
Yeah.
She runs everybody out of that cemetery because too many kids go up there for the
Yeah.
legend of Henry Slagle.
Hmm. So he's quite a legend around there. Then
Yep.
it's not somebody you want following you home, though. If I
Now,
take
when we were there, I was there with a friend of mine, and she started provoking him. She was
really.
Yeah, she called him an asshole and all kinds of stuff. Next thing you know, there's things getting thrown at us.
Oh, well, that's a perfect example. You know, you anger the wrong kind of spirit, and
That's what I
you
told
might,
her. I said, "Do not
yeah,
anger him.
no,
He's not a very nice man. You know,
you,
he's mean when he was alive. He's gonna be mean when he's dead."
yeah, I should at least show respect because you don't want to get on somebody's like that's bad side, living or dead. You know, you really don't.
And
No.
we, like me, I went up and I was respectful. I called him Mr. Slagle out of respect and
Hmm.
introduced myself to him and told him I'd just like to hear his story and if he'd like to talk about it. I told him he didn't have to.
Yeah, that's a good approach to take. Very good, respectful. Yeah, and most of the investigators I deal with, they're usually pretty respectful. They know better. You know, they're very respectful. They introduce themselves and they don't try to overly anger somebody, and just as if you talk to a regular person, just with respect.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten cussed at on several investigations by spirits.
Hmm.
But when I'm at a house, I'm there for a reason. I'm there to get to the point. I'm not there to mess around with them. I
Right,
wanna know why they're tormenting that family.
right, right. And of course, you're doing a residential case. You have a great responsibility to the family and themselves, and the I find, I'm sure you're the same way. The most important thing is you want to put that family at ease. You don't want to overly frighten them because they've been through a trauma as it is. If they're actually to the point where they've had to call somebody in for help, so you want to put them at ease as much as possible and not make the situation worse and overly frighten them.
Yep. And that's like tomorrow night, we got a residential case we're going to, and this client's been living with this for about 16 years. And then
Oh, really?
they finally decided to call someone in because she thought that a lot of the teams out there are like TV guys
Yeah,
that
right.
are come in and bring a film crew with them and
Yeah,
stir everything up. And I said, I assured her, we're not the TV guys. We're not going to come in your house and do that.
right. Yeah, that's a very good point. That you really have to. How do you put it? You want to. I don't want to say shop around, but you've got to do your homework. Say from the client's perspective, you should really do your homework and find out who's out there who will give a legitimate investigation and handle it right, and be sensitive to the people who live there. And you know, it really pays to look up reviews of the team members, and are they in it for fame and money? And although with me it really doesn't pay. So, but yeah,
Right.
really, yeah, really, I'm not living on easy street off the paranormal. But yeah, it's an example of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who, of course, we went to the convention and everything, and that was in honor of Ed and Lorraine. And did you attend? You attend some of the talks and the presentations?
Yeah, I was actually in your guys' talk to life, and
Yeah, I saw you there.
yep, we came in for that one to listen to it, and I didn't get a chance to check out like Ryan Buell's and Father Bob Bailey's. I wanted to get into that, but we were getting stopped like crazy and
Yeah.
by people because people were recognizing us walking around. Hey, I know you.
Now they know you from your show, huh?
Yep,
That's cool. That's cool. It shows you're doing the right thing.
and especially the name. They knew the name.
Hmm.
They seen the shirt, and they're like, "We know you guys. We follow you guys on Facebook."
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that is interesting that you'll go to these conventions and suddenly realize that people do recognize you, and you have a wonderful reputation. Of course, they know you're honest and upfront, and you're not somebody that's going to, hey, let me see if you can anger the spirits into doing something and tipping something over. Things like that. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you don't do that, especially a demonic. You don't want to provoke a demonic entity.
yeah. Well, my brother and I were at a public place in an investigation once, and there was this guy yelling and swearing, come on, you coward, show me what you got, and swearing, cussing him out and everything. And I asked him, excuse me, can I just want to know your experience? Have you been investigating long? Do you have your own teams? No, no, I haven't. I haven't been investigating long at all. Well, how did you study this? How'd you get it? Well, I just watched a bunch of TV shows. That's all I've done. So
Yeah, you find
people,
that quite a bit.
yeah, yeah. People who are in paranormal media, there's nothing, no way they can be usually held responsible, but I think they do very much have a responsibility, to themselves and respectful to the client, respectful for the spirit, for the unseen world that is a reality. Really, more and more, if I can get the word out more and more, it's respect and doing things the right way. There is a proper way of handling these situations, as you well know.
And that's like I tell a client too, even with a residential case, if they own that house once before and they died there and they're stuck there, you're trespassing in their space. And
Mm-hmm.
that's still their house. They're wondering what this strange person is doing in their house. It's like a burglar breaking into somebody's house. What are you going to do? You're going to want to hurt them.
Yeah, very very different perspective from if you look at the other side and how they're perceiving what's going on here. And you have to realize that there is an intelligence out there. It's not all just residual or playback. There is a sensitivity there. There is an intelligence there. It's a whole unseen realm. It is a whole unseen realm, and that's why somebody should take precautions and have great respect for the situation and for everything and everyone involved.
Yep.
It's
Especially if it's a client
yeah,
getting attacked. You don't want to go in there and start stirring it up, and then all of a sudden, boom, it goes after your client.
yeah, because they have to live there. They got to sleep there at night.
Yep.
The investigator leaves and the family has to stay there.
Yep. We've gotten called in several times where teams have gone in, stirred it up, and then just left. They didn't do a cleansing or anything like that. They just went in there and just documented,
Yeah,
and then see ya, bye, and then they
yeah,
call us in.
yeah. That's the same thing. It's. I've seen people. Not that I really condone using a Ouija board to communicate with spirits or divination like that, but if you're going to do it, at least do it respectfully and do a closing.
Yep.
Do a closing. Do a closure. And like I said, I would not advise using a Ouija board, but if somebody does use it, at least use it properly and respectfully. I've seen people doing sessions, Ouija board sessions, and then they get up and walk away. You're left an open line there. Really, literally, it's an open line. It's like an open radio communication. And the best thing to do is thank you and goodbye, and just do a closure of it. And I've seen people. Usually, there's not that much of a repercussion, but once in a while, and it takes that once for there to be a real bad repercussion. And I know this. Two young ladies that were trying to contact the spirit of a young woman in a historical cemetery, a teenager actually, but I was doing research on her. She was from the early 1840s, and they were trying to call her up. I didn't advise them to do this, but they decided they were going to call her up. They did like a seance without a Ouija board, but they did a seance, and they just you know blew the candles out and then just walked away. And all of a sudden they hear knocking and footsteps and something's going on and something just didn't feel quite right. Well, they took a flashlight and they looked outside. They didn't see anybody. Then they put the flashlight down on the ground. There's footsteps. There's footprints right there. And they're
Mhm.
forming. They're forming while they're watching it. Very rare occurrence, but the footprints are actually forming while they're shining the flashlight down. So they ran back in and they lit the candles and they started everything up again. And please, we're so sorry. We didn't mean to, trespass on your privacy. And please, good night. And they did a closure, fortunately, and that stopped it. So
Right.
That's quite a teaching lesson in itself. What they experienced.
Yeah.
You
And I
know,
mean, even with Ouija boards, you don't know who you're talking to when
that's true. That's true. And one of these women was naturally very sensitive. She was sensitive, but she was not adept at controlling it. Like she hadn't really learned to ground herself or anything. It just is like an open, an open wire again. So that made it very, very dangerous. But after while you were there on the East Coast, when you were in Gettysburg, you and your dad did go to the battlefield, right?
yeah, we went to several of them. We went to Little Round Top, Devil's Den,
Uh huh.
Triangular Field. We went to the Bloody Field.
And you did have an experience there as well, right? You had
Yeah,
some experiences.
at several at Devil's Den. I decided I was gonna walk that whole thing of Devil's Den. I circled all the way around the whole thing
Hmm.
down at the bottom, and as I was walking through the bottom below the hill, it you could feel a presence with you, and it felt like soldiers were marching right along with me.
Oh, really? Like you were actually part of the action.
Yep, and they were headed and then got back towards the woods, and it even got even more eerier back in there into the woods, and when I came out, there was a ranger there. Julie and Chris from Raven's Eye were talking to him, and he said there was an old trolley tracks that used to go through those woods
Hmm.
during the Civil War, and that's how they used to get supplies and soldiers in and out through those trolley cars. And so that kind of made sense when I was walking through there. Them soldiers were marching to those trolley cars, and
And
then
that's something repeated, right?
yep, and then when we were up on Little Round Top, we Julie and I both seen smoke come up over the trees down
Oh,
by uh the bloody field, and we both heard cannon fire.
and
So
that wasn't a reenactment.
no, we a ranger was coming by and we asked him. We said, "Are they doing any reenactments today?" He says, "No, nobody does reenactments on these battlefields.
Hmm.
Got tours going on today." I was like, "Well, we just heard cannon fire." He's like, "So you heard that too?" I was like, "Yeah, and we seen
Oh,
something coming
agreed
up
with.
the hill." He's like, "I didn't see that." I said, "We both saw it." And then when I was walking where the general, I forget his name now. He was the eyes of the Civil War standing up on the rock. I went to peek down over the hill and there's a rock formation. Looked down over and there was a soldier standing there staring at me. And he was kind of shocked because he thought I was the enemy.
You saw this?
Yeah, I saw this because I'm also sensitive, so I was able to see it.
Yeah.
And he showed himself to me, and then just as fast as he did, he was gone.
Hmm.
But down in the bloody field when I was walking, I was live on Facebook, and my phone panned over, and this black figure showed up,
A
and it was
black
there
figure.
for a few minutes, and then it was gone, and it was actually one of my viewers. I didn't see it. It was one of my viewers that were viewing the live pointed it out and time stamped it for me,
Uh huh.
and I went back and was able to find it. That was the one video I sent you,
Yes. That's pretty amazing when you actually capture something like that.
and we captured a lot of audio too when we were live on Facebook. Like up
Mhm.
in Devil's Den, you could hear as I'm walking. Now I'm walking in wet grass and mud and dirt, and it sounds like horse hooves galloping with me.
Oh.
And then you can hear like boots walking with me.
Uh huh. You actually hear boot steps.
Yep. And I didn't hear it with my own ears until I started watching the video and I listened through earbuds and I'm like, this sounds like horse hoofs galloping. I haven't checked out the little round top yet on the audio for that. I was running audio up there too.
Hmm.
I had my digital voice recorder with me as well, so and then we investigated the orphanage
Hmm.
and get right there in town, right across from the Jenny Wade house.
Oh yeah, yes, that's terrible, terrible abuse went on there at the orphanage. From what I understand, it was a really was a kind of a hell house situation there for the young children.
Yeah, we went down. I went down in the actual dungeon part, down in the basement where they would
Uh
put
huh.
the children and lock them in there,
Yes,
and the smell coming out of there is ungodly.
really,
Yeah,
because yeah, Tony Sper and Wade Kirby and Dan Rivera, they of Nesper, they've talked about that. They've been there and they talked
mhm.
about the smell that's there, and it's like, what was that like? That experience?
Oh, it was bad. I mean, the urine smell and feces smell, you could smell in there because that's all they had no place to go to the bathroom, so that's all they did was they were in dirt,
Hmm.
and some of the toys are still in there, and, so the tour guide would have us go in there and she'd shut the light off so you could kinda feel what it was like, what those kids felt like
Yeah.
sitting in that dark.
Wow.
And it just weighs on you when you're sitting in there. One lady actually had to get out of there, and she came out, and I said to Julie, I was like, "She doesn't look good." I was like, "We may need to do a cleansing on her."
Really? You think she did get some kind of attachment there?
Yeah,
Or?
she did. She came got with the kids and stuff and all that down in that basement down there.
Mhm.
She got overwhelmed with energy, and she was basically like a conduit to it. So Julie did some work on her, and she was fine after that.
Well, that's good. That's good.
And then we got to after everybody left, we got to do a little 15-minute investigation for ourselves.
Hmm.
So we did the Estes method up there,
Yeah.
and we were getting picking up on the woman that was in charge of the orphanage that and the kids didn't like her.
I wonder why they didn't like her.
And the way she mistreated, she's
Yeah.
nasty. She was mean.
Yes.
And I also got a picture of her. And
Did
when
you?
the
You got her? Yeah.
Yeah, I got a picture of her and several pictures out of there actually. And then when we were doing the tour and the tour guide was talking about her, we had a tripwire set up in the other room in the doorway.
Uh huh.
And as the tour guide was talking about the lady and the tripwire was going off.
Oh, really?
And it was amazing when and we've had experienced that before one other time at that courthouse that we did. We had the tripwire upstairs. And as the tour guides were talking about Judge Marsh, the tripwire was going off
Oh,
because he was pacing back and forth between the two rooms.
yeah. So he was tripping it off when he was going back and forth.
Yep. And so this was happening in the orphanage too. With she was pacing back and forth, setting it off because she was getting aggravated.
Hmm.
Went downstairs and I was carrying my millimeter with REM pod. I had the REM pod on. The REM pod went off, and so we're planning on another trip back there because I want to go out to Reynolds Woods where my cousin was killed
Yeah.
and see if I can communicate with him, see if he haunts there.
When was your cousin killed?
He was. It was his First day out, actually. Trying to John F. Reynolds, he was the one of the major generals.
Uh-huh.
He led the charge out of the woods on horseback, and they pleaded with him to get off his horse, and he wouldn't get off his horse. He rode the horse in the battle, and he was shot by a sharpshooter
Oh, yeah.
right off the horse.
Wow, wow. And this was during the Civil War?
Yep, during the Civil War there in Gettysburg.
Oh.
They've got a big statue at the monument for him,
Hmm.
and I know out there by Reynolds Woods, they've got a statue
Next,
of him on
some woods
horseback.
named after, right?
Yep, the woods are named after him, and I guess they got a big sign on there that says, "This is where John Franklin Reynolds was killed."
Ah,
But even the energy around that battlefield is just overwhelming.
yes. I've heard. I've actually never investigated there because every time I've been there, or Sandra and I have been there, it's always like a working vacation. Or we're there, to sell books and do a convention and do, have a talk or something like that, a lecture. And so we've always been too busy to actually go sightseeing or doing any kind of investigation there or recordings or things like that. It's always just driving by it and things like that. So I really would love to just go out there just to be there and experience like you did.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. I mean, in your mind, you can hear all the screaming, the gunfire, the cannons, the bloody field. You can actually still smell the iron
Oh, really?
from all the blood. And Katie Stafford, the owner of Supernatural Inc., she was telling me she used to go out there when she was 15, and she'd be walking that field and it'd be like kind of mushy. And she was wearing white shoes and they ended up red
Oh.
from all that blood.
Oh, dear. Wow.
And I was trying to she told me about a house that sits back in there I was trying to find that was part of the Civil War, and it's supposed to be back in the woods back there somewhere, but she said that was when she was 15 and they may have torn it down.
Yeah.
I never did find it. I circled all those woods right through there looking for it.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever do any cryptozoology? You've done some, right?
Yeah, I've done a little bit.
And
I'm
have you ever come across something that's significant?
No, not yet. I'm waiting for Carter Bouchard. He's our local Missouri Bigfoot guy.
Yes, right.
I'm waiting for him to get freed up. I know he just wrote another book, so he's supposed to go back out, and we're actually going to tag along with him and actually go see if we can experience one down in the Mark Twain National Forest.
I wish you good luck with that. That should be great.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting experience because I've never been on a Bigfoot hunt. I mean, I'm a hunter, so I've been in the woods since I was a kid with my dad
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So, and I've never came across anything of that in upstate New York. None of that
Mm.
when I was a kid.
We've had some cryptids, reported cryptids here in Rhode Island, but I mean, there have been some. Even though it's a small state, there have been some reported sightings of Bigfoot, and there's a good nickname for it. It's called Big Rhodey, and that's because we're referred to as Little Rhodey. So my brother actually gave it the nickname of Big Rhodey. There have
Well,
been sightings.
that's like Missouri here has got their own Bigfoot called the Momo monster.
Oh, okay, yeah, and that's like a Sasquatch kind of thing.
It's actually smaller in height than a traditional Sasquatch, and it's got three fingers on each hand,
Oh, really?
three toes on each foot, and its eyes glow red. But it's hairy like a Bigfoot, but it's supposed to be one of the more aggressive versions of Bigfoot.
Oh, is it? It is aggressive, huh?
Yep. They say it will if you come in contact with it, it will hurt you.
Oh, wow.
but the last reported sighting I heard was around this area was in the 70s.
Hmm.
Most of it's your standard traditional Bigfoot they've been spotting down South Missouri because you got the Ozarks down through there. Got the Ozark Mountains, Lake of the Ozarks, and then the Mark Twain National Forest.
Hmm.
So it's all mountain ranges and everything down through there.
Yeah. That's interesting because we had something similar in the 1970s in here in Warwick, Rhode Island. But it didn't hang around for long. It was here for a while and then it was never seen again. It's the building is long gone. It was an Apex building, Apex Shopping Center.
Mhm.
But we have a shopping center there now, but it's been built over and everything. But this it was kind of like a simian creature, kind of like a Sasquatch creature, but again much smaller. And it was in the mid 1970s, but it hasn't been seen since. There were eyewitness reports of it, enough to get a description of it. And here's kind of sketch of it. I don't know how well you can see that. That's kind of
Yep,
yeah, that's a sketch of the creature that was sighted around that area of Warwick.
that's,
And
similar to what they see out here in Missouri too.
that's what made me think of this. That it is what you describe is very similar.
And I know Carter's told me several stories doing expeditions down to Mark Twain National Forest. There's a cemetery that sits out in the middle of the forest.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get back in there with a vehicle, nothing. You have to hike back in there. Well, he said there's a concrete cross that's probably a good 2,000 pounds was laying down on the ground when he was in there. He went back a couple weeks later and it was standing straight up.
Oh, really? How do you account for that?
Yeah, it's they say the cemetery's haunted as well is what Carter told me.
Mm-hmm.
That's another reason why we're gonna go with him too and check out that cemetery down in there. But he said he's seen them disappear in front of him. They've actually disappeared on thermal. He's watching it and then it actually drops down to an orb and then just disappears.
Wow. What would you say that is? What kind of an entity is that?
He said it was a Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
It had the same height, characteristics of a humanoid Bigfoot figure. But they say Bigfoot's part of the supernatural, they're shapeshifters.
Yeah, yeah, they are. I've heard that too. That they're kind of paraphysical, and it would kind of account for why one hasn't actually been caught.
Yep, and they
Is
say he says they're intelligent too. He led an expedition out there, um, and, that Bigfoot actually left the rocks and counted all the people that were in the expedition. They had Carter and his group, and then the one guy that was separate, and he had a separate rock on the other side of the tree limb.
Oh, really?
Is what and
Kind of.
Carter showed me the picture of that,
Uh huh.
that it was captured on a game camera,
Wow.
and then he's got a picture of a Bigfoot hand on the game camera,
Really? That's cool.
and he was telling me another story about a family of their living homestead, so they grow their own food and stuff in the greenhouse. Well, this juvenile Sasquatch would come every night and raid the greenhouse.
Oh, right to the greenhouse, huh?
They've got facial imprints on the actual plastic and the moisture.
Mm-hmm.
The Bigfoot would look out to see if a human was coming. He would go in there and indulge himself, and then look out to see if the owner's coming out, and then take off if the owner was coming out or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a handprint of one on the plastic as well. Wolf Bev said she had another question.
Oh, yeah.
Facebook is messing up on me.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Wolf Bev. Type your question in the chat and we'll answer it.
Yeah.
Highly Paranormal 406. What area is this? It's down in Mark Twain National Forest here in Missouri, way down south Missouri, down below the Ozarks.
Sounds like an excellent area to investigate there, you know?
Yeah, it is, and they say there's a lot of stuff that happens in the Mark Twain National Forest. I've heard
Wow.
with Bigfoot sightings, paranormal down through there. It's sort of like how the Appalachia Mountains are, where they say that a lot of paranormal stuff happens in West
Oh,
Virginia,
yeah. Yes. Yes, indeed.
the cryptids.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's interesting at Mount St. Helen when they had the disaster there so many years ago, and they, it was like people who couldn't talk about it at the time. They were bound to the military. They had to keep cover. Okay, we explore a lot in the woods in Montana. Oh,
Oh, cool.
I kind of that
I didn't
sounds
know
good.
they actually worked with a guy who used to guide in Montana, and
And he was a guide there.
yeah, he used to be a guide, and he do search and rescue when people get lost in the woods and the mountains of Montana. He
Yeah.
would scout to find them.
Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
here's our question. Yes, relate to the first time people that experience paranormal or more than once that have no knowledge or understanding but wonder or ask what should they do to be safe.
Right. Again, knowledge is power. Try to gain as much knowledge as possible. Try to find out what kind of a situation you'll be going in there, but be prepared for just about anything. Just remember, there's always inherent dangers, even if there is no paranormal activity actually there. There is people that you don't know where they're coming from, what their attitude might be, might startle somebody, and that's another thing about going to cemeteries at night. You know, you could really, really startle somebody if you're there investigating at night. And also, just do your homework beforehand. Find out what kind of a situation this is, and who's involved, and why you're there, and it helps sometimes to alert the authorities if you're going to be in a certain place at a certain time. Let the authorities know you're there. Let the local police know you're there. That you're not just some kids out there partying. That you're actually doing some serious research, and you could be there to help people too, as well. So just it really pays to get a rapport with people in the local authorities.
Hi, Brandy. Welcome in.
Hi, Brandy. Yeah.
Yeah, the same for us too, as well. Do your background checks on your, especially if you're doing a residential background check your client
Yes.
property. You want to know what you're walking into. You don't want to bring your team into a harmful situation where you're going to walk in and get shot or something because there's a drug deal going on.
Yeah.
Check that history of violence, drugs,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
records,
Exactly.
because I've had multiple situations. Did a case, and for this guy, and his son-in-law showed up, and we're there investigating. His son-in-law pulls a gun out in the hallway, thinking he's going to shoot a ghost,
Oh wow.
and I had an investigator in the one bedroom doing an EVP session. So
Gee.
I told the client, I was like, either he goes with that gun or I'm packing my team up and we're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Good for
not
you.
putting my team's safety in jeopardy.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
example, if you're out traveling or out just taking a walk,
Yeah.
yeah, let's always let somebody know where you're at.
Yeah.
Never investigate by yourself
That's right. That's right. I've learned that never to investigate by yourself.
because you never know what can happen. You need to have that buddy system.
Yes.
If you're coming under contact with something dark that can possess you,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to have a good friend with you that can recognize those symptoms.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah. always try to be with somebody who has experience or learn from somebody that has that experience, pass that knowledge on, because there's just so many, as you know, new groups forming all the time. A lot
Yep.
of times they're young people and they've never done this before, and they think it'll just be thrills. And of course, sometimes you do meet thrills. Sometimes you're there hours and hours and hours and nothing happens, you know. But sometimes you get to a very, if you're lucky enough, get to a very active place. But then you have to play it safe too. You have to be there with somebody who has knowledge. And I I think two very good people to be with would be you and your dad. With that knowledge, that background you have of all these different situations, and and having been done a lot of hunting yourself and everything, you know what to watch out for and precautions to take. And yeah, highly paranormal 40616 says, yeah, know what you're doing, and I'm sorry, typing words that people that had experienced paranormal, they weren't expecting that to happen. Yeah, a lot of things will take you off guard. Will
Yeah,
really
it
take.
doesn't happen on cue.
Yeah, that's right. Um, and the spirits won't necessarily perform for you too when you want them to on camera.
Yep.
I remember I was doing a show for Sandra, and I were involved in an episode of Paranormal State going back quite a few years ago. It's like like 2007, 2008, something like that.
I do.
And we were in the schoolhouse episode, and I asked for. We did a blessing. We were asked to do a house blessing, and our friend Shannon Sylvia lived there at the time, and the schoolhouse had been turned into condominiums, but they were experiencing a lot of spirit problems there. And after we'd done the cleansing and prayed that everything would be at rest, I asked for a sign of departure, and nothing happened. And of course, then they turned the cameras off. Less than a minute later, all of a sudden, one of the cupboard doors in the kitchen slams. It goes slamming right off, right open after the cameras are off. So
Yep.
it's not going to do everything on cue, despite what some of the television shows portray. The reality shows, it's not always going to happen on cue. So
No. And that makes the rest of us that actually do it for real look bad when they do stuff like that, or they take
yes,
one little piece of evidence and they milk it for what it's worth when
yeah,
it's even a big piece of evidence.
that's right. That's right. And there's one cemetery around here. It's Brayton Cemetery in Apponaug, Rhode Island, and that's part of Warwick, a suburb of Warwick. And this cemetery, Brayton Cemetery, there's one entity. It's known for the Mothman of Brayton Cemetery. Yeah, not as well known as the Point Pleasant Mothman, but I guess if you want to loosely call it a Mothman, it's something that's supposedly been seen there. It has glowing red eyes and it's rather tall, and I can't really define exactly what it is, but that's how eyewitnesses have described it. But that place is known for paranormal activity. I'm not really surprised because that cemetery is actually, it's beautifully kept, very nice cemetery, and townspeople volunteer their time to keep that place in good condition. It's and people from the city, but it's actually several cemeteries have been added to that when Warwick became more developed. People that lived on farmlands in the area, as the place got developed and the farm people moved out, they relocated the cemeteries to there. So there's some historical cemeteries there. And there are also a number of unmarked graves there. I can't say how many because they're unmarked, but there
Right.
are quite a few unmarked graves there because people from the poor asylum, or the poor farmers they used to call it, buried there. They couldn't afford headstones. So there are some unmarked graves there as well. So it's that's probably why there is paranormal activity there, and because people do seances and rituals there too. Thank you again for professional paranormal investigators. You're very welcome. Very welcome. We don't work cemeteries, nothing against it, but we found it to be the same as hunting on a game reserve. It's either space, so out of respect, we don't go in. It's their space. Yes, it's their space. Exactly. And
exactly.
yeah, most of the time we go in just out of historical research and out of respect as well. But there used to be, when I was in the Atlantic Paranormal Society, we used to visit that cemetery quite frequently, Brayton Cemetery. But I do go in there out of respect, and there are Civil War veterans buried there, World War I, World War II. So it is a very, very respectful place, and the honored dead are buried there. So we don't go there for thrills. We go there for to pay our respects, and actually we've done our part of cleaning up the cemetery too,
Yep,
trying to make it a very, very neat place. But there have been undeniable reports of activity that have taken place there.
that's like us too. We won't go to a cemetery unless we're called for like an urban legend case to debunk an urban legend,
Yes.
to help law enforcement out, to keep kids out of there.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And so when you go there, you do more good than harm, obviously.
Yep. And when we're going in there, we're paying our respects too to the dead there. We're like one cemetery we went in, one of the gravestones were knocked over, so we picked it back up and put it back on its pedestal where it was,
Mm-hmm.
out
Good
of
for you.
respect.
Yeah. I hate that when people do disrespect and vandalize cemeteries. My dad was a caretaker for a cemetery in Cranston, Rhode Island, and somebody came in there and did some vandalism too. So my dad wasn't very happy about that. Fortunately, it stopped and it's patrolled and everything. So, but there's we have certain cemeteries here in Rhode Island that supposedly vampires are buried in, and
Oh, yeah, I remember Carl telling me about that.
yes, yeah, yes, it's that's how people in the 18th and 19th century, sometimes locally, they dealt with diseases that they had no cure for. It could contain like tuberculosis, TB. And one family member after another would start dying off, and medical professionals at the time could diagnose these diseases, but there wasn't much they could do about them. So people started turning to folklore, and they would actually go into their backyard or to the local cemetery and start digging up relatives. If they found someone who hadn't properly decayed, then that's what they would consider their vampire spirit was living in that body. And they would actually do an exorcism where they would disrupt the corpse in some way, including cutting out the heart, the liver, vital organs, and such, and burning them on a nearby rock. And we know of at least one case that, in fact, this actually put a stop to it because it got out to the local periodical and then to the Providence Journal. They actually burned a young woman's heart on a nearby rock and fed the ashes to her brother.
Oh, wow.
So that's, I mean, a form of cannibalism, but
Yeah.
in a way, they kind of had sort of a right idea, like inoculating someone with a bit of the disease to build up immunity. But of course, this was a spiritual disease to them too. They believed it was a demon spirit inhabiting the body that would come out in the form of a vampire and prey on sleeping relatives. And psychologically, you can kind of understand that too, because they'd be dreaming about their recently deceased sibling,
Mm.
and it would seem so real. It would be like they were in the room with them, and then they themselves would sometimes get sick and die of the disease. So that's how people dealt with it, through superstition and through folklore. And there are a number of cases on record where this actually did happen. It was not that uncommon a practice back in the 18th and 19th century in New England, and especially here in Rhode Island. And Rhode Island was once known as the vampire capital of the United States because they had so many cases like this where relatives dug up their deceased family members and did this ritual. And
Oh,
there's a grave in North Smithfield where it actually says that. It starts a poem is written in one of the graves in one of the headstones, and some of it's under cement. It's been cemented over, so you can't read the whole thing. But it says, "Though vampire's grasp has seized thy mortal frame." So they actually at least one time used the word vampire on a gravestone. though consumption's vampire grasp hath seized thy mortal frame. So that's pretty interesting, especially from an historical point of view as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I know we went up to Jenny Wade's gravesite when we were in Gettysburg and paid our respects to Jenny Wade.
Mm-hmm.
As we're walking the cemetery, this hawk appears, flies up on top of one of the big headstones,
Wow.
and it was just sitting there looking at all of us. And so we took pictures of it, and it was sitting there just screeching at us.
Hmm.
And then it finally flew away.
What do you think the significance of that could have been?
Uh, I'm wondering if it was maybe Jenny Wade's spirit, kind of saying hello and thank you for visiting,
Mm-hmm.
or like my Native American ancestors believe like a hawk is a spirit guide.
Yes. Yes, I have heard that a hawk can be a spirit guide.
And
And yeah.
that's what my grandma used to say, my dad's mom, she used to tell my dad that the hawk is a spirit guide, 'cause she was full-blooded Comanche Indian.
Oh, okay.
She came from a reservation in Oklahoma
Mm-hmm.
and got adopted out by a family in New York.
Yes. And for those who don't know, Jenny Wade was a casualty of the Civil War. She was actually a civilian, and she was killed by friendly fire. If you want to add to that, what exactly happened, how she met her end.
Yep, she was baking bread for the soldiers. She would run out and get water for them and bake them bread, and she was there, got the dough in her hand, and a bullet come through the door. And they say now you stick your finger through that door, you'll be married in a year, is what the tour guide was telling
Oh,
us.
really?
Jenny Wade House, yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
He says everybody that stuck their ring finger through that door has gotten engaged and married.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
But I know
interesting.
during the day they don't like you to talk about the ghost stuff.
No, they have the regular daytime tours.
Yep.
I'm sure there's always somebody asked if this place is haunted. Something like that.
Oh, it is. I got some evidence out of there. We were running some ghost stuff when we were walking through.
Mm-hmm. And nearby, of course, is Sachs Bridge, correct?
Yep.
And what's the history of that? That there are some hangings that took place off of that bridge?
Yeah, I believe there's hangings, several hangings that took place.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tried to say them shots came from the Farnsworth house down there.
Oh,
So
really?
we were trying to see if the trajectory and kind of the angles. My dad was sitting there. He stayed in that part, and we went and walked off, went upstairs and stuff. So he stayed in there, and he was trying to debunk the trajectory of the bullet coming through the door and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're right. Highly paranormal historical people don't appreciate the paranormal approach.
No, they don't seem to. They don't seem to. At least they try to avoid that subject. And of course, invariably, there will be people who ask about the paranormal and this place haunted. What goes on here? Things like that.
But if anybody does get to Gettysburg, check out Ghostly Images of Gettysburg.
Uh huh. Yes.
Go on their ghost tours. They do some awesome ghost tours.
Mm-hmm.
That's who we went with on the orphanage one. Then we were talking to her at the Paracon. She goes, "Why did I find out at the last minute that Ed and Lorraine's cousins were here?"
Neat. That's neat.
And I was like, "Well, I don't know. It was kind of a last minute investigation. We didn't really know much about it, so we decided to book it."
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if weddings take place still. If they have weddings at these, like the Jetting White House and
Uh,
places like.
yeah, actually, I heard they still do.
Mhm.
Then there was another place I heard somebody said they do weddings also in a haunted place.
Yeah.
But I heard the Farnsworth house, one of the ghostly image people, one of the guides was telling me that in the Farnsworth house, Ed and Lorraine were in there and they sealed up a doorway so something couldn't come through it.
Really?
It was housing something bad in there, so they sealed up a doorway back there.
Hmm. That's something that Ed and Lorraine found there.
Yep, that they got called in there and they sealed that doorway from it coming in. I don't know what it was, but they said that they went through there and sealed that doorway up for some reason.
That's interesting that they felt they had to seal it.
Oh, you too, highly paranormal 406. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it very much, very much. So, Russell, you've been to Salem, Massachusetts, right?
I've been to Massachusetts, never been to Salem yet.
No, no, it's crazy there around this time of year. As we get more closer to Halloween, it gets crazy. It
Oh
gets,
yeah, I'm
gets
sure.
it's like Mardi Gras. You can hardly walk through it. It's like,
Yeah, we're getting ready to go to Marshall next Thursday and Friday
uh-huh.
to the haunted movie theater.
Oh, we were gonna do investigate that place?
We're part of the haunted house.
Okay.
Haunted house for Halloween every year, and then we usually do a investigation afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And then next weekend we'll probably investigate the movie theater
Ah,
because it's my birthday weekend next weekend. So
well, happy birthday to you.
thanks.
That's cool.
That will be the big 45.
Really?
Yep.
Gee, I didn't know that. Wow. Didn't know that. You seem younger than that.
Yeah. I took care of myself. Didn't smoke, drink, party. Didn't do any of that.
That's good. That's good. Good for you. Good for you. So how are you going to be celebrating?
Uh, we'll be at the movie theater at the haunted house, and then investigating the movie theater
Mm-hmm.
a weekend. So,
Oh, that's cool. Yes, let us know what kind of evidence you get there.
oh yeah, this will be like our fourth time. This will be Julie and Chris from Raven's Eyes' first time going there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. That's great.
That that movie theater was actually on TV.
Oh, really? What was it on TV
It was
for?
on it was on Dead Files in
Oh,
2012.
okay.
Episode called The Madhouse. Amy Allen and Steve DeShavi. Amy Allen did our psychic walkthrough, and
Mm-hmm.
we were actually able to confirm Amy Allen's a legit medium.
Uh-huh.
We
She was
captured
ac- she was accurate then, huh?
Yep, we captured everything she picked up, and then all the history that Steve dove into, we were able to validate also.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad got pushed in that movie theater.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, we were checking out the projection booth. This was our first investigation there,
Mm-hmm.
and something I went up in with another member of mine up in the projection booth, and my dad was standing right by the stairs. Next thing I know, I look and he got pushed, pushed him down, tried to push him over the balcony,
Oh my goodness.
and he had a fingerprint bruises on his back, his arm from it.
So there's something hostile there, huh?
Oh yeah, it's a man that was shot and killed there. He's an intelligent haunt. He's actually grabbed the owner's father before. He actually, friend of mine's wife was with us on the one investigation, and she was sitting in cinema 3 up in the front row, and we had a DVR camera sitting there, and it was overlooking her, and all of a sudden, she starts sitting there with her thumb just going down her face, digging her face with her thumb and not realizing she's doing it.
Really?
He gets up thinking she has something in her eye, so she goes back to her husband who's in the back row. He looks, don't see nothing. She sits back down. She starts digging her face again. And then her face just starts morphing to somebody else.
Oh wow. Goodness.
And we captured this on video, and we didn't know this was happening at that time
Hmm.
till I reviewed the DVR footage. Well, we get up to go finish up and leave. Walks out ahead of us towards the lobby, and the door slams in her face. We get out in the lobby, and she says, "My face feels like it's on fire, like it's burning."
Hmm.
So turn the light on, look in the mirror, and she's got 3 scratches down her face.
Oh gee. Wow.
And that spirit likes to mock voices.
Hmm.
It mocked one of my members.
Oh really? It'll
I
call
kept
out the names or something?
It actually sounded exactly like her voice say, "Hello,"
Oh really?
and I captured it on recorder. It's a Class A EVP, clear. And, there's another one that she likes to throw temper tantrums. She actually went missing. She was last seen about 100 feet from the movie theater, was waiting for her date. Well, she
Hmm.
never made her date, and she'd been missing for 17 years.
Oh, 17 years. Wow.
They ended up finding her body in the Missouri River, strangled with, window weights,
Gee.
and they I actually was able to get some EVPs from her and asked her who kidnapped her, and she said Joe Smiley, and that was the date she was waiting for, was Joe Smiley.
Hmm.
But he had the perfect alibi, so they never convicted him. They didn't have enough evidence or anything because he had an alibi. And then, the man that was killed there, his name was Estel Turner. He's the one that's nasty.
Hmm.
He was shot and killed by the manager, Frank Cello. When Frank Cello took over the movie theater in the 20s, he moved his family there, his wife. Well, Estel Turner saw Frank Cello's wife and was like, "Oh, she's a good-looking girl," started messing around with her. So when Frank got wind of it, he went to Estel and confronted him and said, "Look, you're gonna mess with my wife, you take her and marry her." He's like, "No, you got a family, I'll leave her alone. I won't mess with her anymore." Well, they were at a get together across the street from the movie theater, which is now a parking lot. It used to be a hotel, and he went to the restroom. He had been drinking, come back out. Here's Estel Turner talking to his wife. Estel's drunk, so the argument started, and Frank told Estel, "I told you to leave my wife alone. You're not gonna marry her, leave her alone. Next time, I'm gonna kill you." They got in an argument, so then Frank Cello was standing there, and Estel went to leave, so Frank followed him. They went across the street, got in front of the movie theater, and Frank pulled out a 38 and shot him right on the sidewalk.
Oh dear. Wow.
So he haunts the movie theater also. He messes with the owner's staff and likes to pinch the girls there, and he had 2 guys there, they were cleaning up in the movie theater, and they could hear in Cinema 1 people talking, carrying a conversation, and then
Hmm.
the chairs started flipping up and down on their own,
Gee.
and it has a separate entrance for the black people back in the day, so the black people
Uh-huh.
get their own entrance to come to the movie theater. It's also got tunnels in the floor
Tunnels.
that go lead all the way out to the street. The basement is where I've experienced Nellie. I've seen her full-bodied apparition down there.
Oh, have you? Wow. Down there.
We were down there just talking, looking stuff over, and we were in the dark, and then next thing I know, I see this white figure come out in the hallway. So I'm looking over my one member's shoulder. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm watching something." "Don't be doing that over my shoulder." I said, "Well, then get out of my way." I went towards it, and it scurried back into the room, and then there was a bag on the floor, and you can hear the bag move, and you could see through the other side of the wall, so my other member was looking through there, and it was gone.
Oh, it was going then, huh? Wow. Sounds like a very, very active place.
Oh, it is. It's very active towards fall and stuff like that. We've done it during summer, but summer's not as active as it is towards fall.
Uh-huh. So fall is when it tends to pick up.
Yep, it picks up pretty good in there during the fall,
Mm.
and she captures every bunch of stuff on her security cameras as well too. And then when she does her haunted house every Halloween, that amps it up even more too.
Mm. That seems to ignite it more.
Yep, because
Energy to it. Yes.
we were there last year for the haunted house because I got to play Michael Myers for the haunted house last year.
Oh, good for you.
So yeah, Michael Myers walked the streets of Marshall.
Oh, wow. That must have been quite a sight.
Oh yeah, it was. I had a ball. I took a lot of pictures that night,
Mm.
but they had me working inside for a little bit, and then they wanted me to go outside and work the line for a little bit. So they
Yeah.
took me out the back exit through Cinema 3. There was a group of kids walking, and the one staff member says, "You gotta scare them." I says, "Watch this." So I start walking. I walk up beside them, and I turn and I just do that Michael Myers stare at them. They
Right.
about jumped into the fire escape.
Hmm.
So then I started walking, working the line out front and scaring people out there. And this one girl, she was so terrified, and I just turned and looked at her. So then she finally gets the courage. I'm not afraid of you. So I started walking towards her. Well,
Yeah.
she goes to run in the back alley. They had a statue of Pennywise back there,
Oh, really? Yes.
and that scared her when she
Yeah,
did
that
that.
sounds like a scary place. Michael Myers and Pennywise there, and
They had Freddy Krueger. They wanted to do a Freddy Krueger Michael Myers battle out on the sidewalk, but we
oh,
didn't get
really?
to do it. Yeah.
That's that'd
One
be quite.
girl one girl, I felt bad for her. I was walking up there and she was in line to get in, and I just turned and looked at her, and she immediately just started crying and hyperventilating, and I felt bad for her, and they took her back to the car. She didn't even bother to come in.
I guess they did. After that,
One lady and her boyfriend, they were debating to come in. She was like, "No, I think it's too scary." So, I'm walking behind them, and I walk up behind them, and I'm standing behind her. And the owner's brother, he does the security. He's like, "I wouldn't turn around if I were you.
oh
You think it's scary in there, I wouldn't turn around." Well, she turns around, here's Michael Myers standing behind her holding a knife,
my goodness.
and she
I
just screamed.
guess, I guess she had nightmares that night. After
Oh,
that,
yeah.
going through that.
But it sparked up paranormal activity that night. We were up in Cinema 2. They don't use Cinema 2 for the haunted house, so we went up there.
Yeah.
It's one of the most haunted spots at the movie
So the
theater.
whole place is haunted, huh?
Yep. I've got up on my YouTube channel, you can see where I've gotten up on the balconies.
Hmm.
Have been untouched since the 1920s.
Yeah.
We got up there and investigated up there a little bit, and we 3 of us decided we were gonna sleep in the most haunted part of the theater
Yeah.
that
So you
night.
did that.
Yep, I slept in one of the chairs out there, and I had my millimeter sitting beside me on the steps.
Yeah.
I had a digital recorder running all night, and we had the camera system running.
Hmm.
So I woke up to the millimeter spiking right beside me, and
Oh,
then the
really?
pod going off.
Oh, that's something. He woke up right to that.
Yep. And my other 2 members, they're over on the other row, and they heard the REM pod, and they were like, "Is that the REM pod?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Hmm.
Woke all 3 of us up. This
Wow.
was about 4 o'clock in the morning
Mhm.
when it was going off, and We tried to get up. There was one balcony where they closed it off. They used to have upper seating,
Yeah.
and we were trying to get up in there to crawl through in there, and because they found stuff in there. They found shoes up there and that actually belonged to Nellie.
Oh, really? So how long have they been there?
Since the night she went missing in like 1930,
Uh-huh.
so they've been up there since then. Because the theater was built in the 20s, and they were gonna tear it down. So the owner Kim, she bought it to save the theater because she grew up in Marshall
Right.
and she
Okay.
used to go there when she was a kid. So when it closed, they were gonna tear it down and demolish it. So she bought it and saved history with it.
Mhm.
But Marshall, Missouri has its history of Civil War too. The Confederates were held up there, and they got ambushed in the town square.
Oh, wow.
So Marshall's seen its share of history of the Civil War and a lot of murders. It's got a state hospital, which we're supposed to investigate that also, the Marshall State Hospital.
Mhm. That's going to be creepy in there, the state
Yeah,
hospital.
yeah, they tore some of it down. Some of it's still standing. It's owned actually by the school in Marshall,
Uh-huh.
and we have a connection with one of the guys that work at the school to get in there and investigate that.
Oh, wow. It's one of those cemeteries. They call them the vampire cemeteries in Rhode Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's historical cemetery. I don't know if you can see that. See the small graves in there,
Yeah.
small stones. That's historical cemetery number 14 in Exeter, Rhode Island. That's the Tillinghast plot, the Tillinghast Cemetery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's one of them. Some of them have no markings at all. They're just stones that they put in because they didn't always had professional carvers to be there. You know, when the children died, especially when there was one after another. And that's the Tillinghast one. That's in Exeter, Rhode Island. That's the where Sarah Tillinghast is buried and her most of her siblings.
Okay.
And the story goes, I mean, these people really lived. It really did happen. But the story goes that her father, his name Snuffy Tillinghast, his nickname because he wore a snuff-colored jacket. Snuffy Tillinghast had 14 children. He and his wife together had 14 children, and he had an apple orchard that he raised, and people came from miles around for his produce. And he had a strange dream one night that half his orchard was dead and half of it was flourishing. And he could hear his daughter, Sarah, who was around 21 years old at the time, calling him on the wind, going, Father, Father. And he smelled the stench of decay. And this nightmare, this dream bothered him very much, but he tried to forget about it until Sarah became sick. And she's around 21 years old and very beautiful, long, blonde,
Mhm.
cascading hair, and very precocious child. They said she still liked reading poetry in cemetery. She'd go in the local cemetery and read a book of poetry. But she died of became ill, died of tuberculosis, and shortly after she died, one of her siblings began saying, "Sarah's coming into my room at night, and she's hurt, sitting on me and making me hurt. When I wake up, I'm in pain." And that child became sick and died very shortly afterwards too. So about three children died, and Snuffy began wondering, is this is this the dream I had? Does that mean half my children are going to die? Like half my orchard died in my dream? Because people did believe it. They put a lot of stock in dreams back then. But finally, a fourth child became ill, and to stop the curse, he talked to as many people in the local grange and local farmers, and they came up with the superstition. This is in 1799. This happened, and they say you've got to dig up your family members and find out who's not decaying. And of course, Sarah had been she'd been buried the longest,
Mm.
and when they came to her grave, she was perfectly preserved. She
Oh,
even had
wow.
They say her bright blue eyes were wide open. She had kind of a smile on her face. So they said that's where the vampire spirit is buried. So right there in that cemetery, that picture I showed you, in 1799, they dug up the bodies of the children, and with Sarah, since she was not decayed properly, her father cut her heart out according to the superstition and burned it on a nearby rock. And supposedly the child that was already ill died shortly afterwards, but there were no more deaths after that. So he stopped the supposedly he stopped the curse before half of his children could die. So they figured that was successful. And there was another case in the early 1800s where a 19-year-old girl in Foster, Rhode Island, actually became ill with tuberculosis. And what her father did with her body was have it dug up, and he set it on fire right there in the cemetery. And as her body's burning, uh, he instructed his children to come around and breathe in the fumes of her body as it's burning. Breathe in the fumes, and a few more of them died anyway. So I guess that was kind of an affair there. But yeah, but this is what people. Her name was Nancy Young, so that's a true story as well. But that took place in 1827. So, but these are all on historical records that this did happen, and it was like I said, a frequent occurrence in Rhode Island back in the 17 and 1800s. So you can actually see their graves to this day.
Oh, wow.
It would
Yeah.
be interesting if you could see that what condition their bodies were in now. You could see the disruption where they cut the heart out and everything like that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'd definitely be interesting.
Yeah.
The cemetery by Hans Mill here, the oldest grave in that one is 1700s.
Oh, yeah, that early, huh?
Yep. And it's just right up the road from the old Mormon massacre site.
Hmm.
That place is extremely haunted. Like, if you go on the anniversary of the massacre, which is coming up October 30th,
Uh huh.
is when it gets really active. It's like they're reenacting what they went through. We went down there during that, and we had motion lights set up on the tree stumps,
Uh huh. Oh,
and
good. You had motion lights. Very good.
all the motion sensor lights were going off,
Hmm.
and my REM pod started going crazy, and millimeter started spiking, which there's no power or electricity. It's just an open field down
Hmm.
there.
Now, how many people were killed in the Mormon massacre?
There was about 17 killed at the Hans Mill massacre. Men,
Really?
women, children.
And just because they were of the Mormon faith, is that why?
What it was the Mormons were taking over this part of Missouri,
Yeah.
and they had stolen a cannon from the military. And they were afraid with Far West and then Hans Mill, the Mormons were just building and taking over everything. They were afraid they were going to start a war and start pushing the locals out. So they had a militia, Livingston County militia, rode in to run them out of here. And when they rode into Hans Mill, they just started shooting them.
Mm-hmm.
Several of the men fought back, but a lot of them escaped injured. And then they were headed down to South Missouri. And as they were crossing the river, militia was waiting for them down there and started shooting them in the river down there.
Oh, wow.
And the head brothers, the two brother head Mormons, they managed to escape. One fled north and one fled to, I think, Illinois. They caught him in Illinois and they hung him. The other brother stayed gone for a while and then he migrated back. And that's where he ended up over by Lawson, Missouri at Crooked River.
Mm-hmm.
Started another settlement and they weren't having it. And there was another battle there and another Mormon massacre. And I believe that's where he got killed,
Oh, wow.
which is not too far from where Jesse James used to hide out.
Mm-hmm. That's one of his hideouts there, huh?
Yep. And so that's why you hear the gunfire and cannon fire out there.
Mm-hmm.
and you'll hear it all hours of the night, 10 o'clock at night, 3 in the morning, and, with Jesse riding through there, I'm sure he was shot at riding through there a few times too, so
Hmm.
and it's got a history of slaves, Native Americans on that property, and it's been in that the owner's family, it's been in his family for, like, hundreds of years. Mr. Watkins of Watkins M that owned Watkins Mill, he used to own it, then he sold it to Mr. Lawson, and Mr. Lawson sold it to the Taylor family. The Taylor family owned it for hundreds of years, and it's still in the Taylor family,
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
and
So,
I'm actually related to him, so
oh, are you really?
yep.
How are you related to him?
This is kinda funny, we got called in for a case for his house, and, his late ex-wife that died in the house is actually a cousin of mine.
Oh, wow.
Last name was Reynolds,
Uh huh.
and so we come to find out we're related to her, and then now his wife now, Kathy, she's got Reynolds line in her family, so we're working on tracing that lineage right now.
Hmm.
Because the Reynolds migrated all over out west here. They went as far as all the way over to the West Coast, so
Hmm. Oh,
even even down south, we had an uncle that lived in Texas, one that lived in Louisiana, which is buried in Tennessee now in the military cemetery.
yeah.
My, great-grandfather Truman had about 13 kids.
Oh, did he really? Well, I guess they did have a lot of large families back then because of the infant mortality rate and things, and
Yep,
so they did tend to have a lot of children. But,
and then Caleb, would be my 3rd 2nd great-grandfather,
hmm.
which is Truman's father. His dad was big in Rhode Island, that's where his dad lived, was Rhode Island.
Oh, really? And he was Reynolds.
Yep, Caleb Reynolds.
Uh
Caleb
huh.
Reynolds Senior. I guess there's a big monument somewhere in Rhode Island for him.
I'll have to definitely have to check that out. I have to look that up.
He's buried in right now, he's buried in, Truman, Warren, New York, in the Reynolds Cemetery.
And that's in New York, the Reynolds Cemetery,
That's up in Warrensburg, New York.
because I know that's where you were born, right? You came
Yep,
from New York originally.
yep.
Wow, it's
Oh,
interesting with the. I don't know if you if you're knowledgeable about Edgar Allan Poe.
yeah, a little
His,
bit.
yeah, his strange death, and nobody today is sure exactly how he died, but he made a trip. He had proposed to somebody, and they accepted it. His proposal. He proposed to a lot of women, especially near the end of his life. Even if they were married, he'd propose to them. But yeah, he had proposed to one of his childhood sweethearts from years before, his teenage sweethearts, and she accepted. But he never came back. He went on a trip. He said he'd be back, but he kept mentioning the name Reynolds. Reynolds. He kept mentioning the name Reynolds to people, and I think he'd go on afoul of some people in that family. And he was found on a step in Maryland. He was in Baltimore, I believe. He was just babbling incoherently, and he was wearing ill-fitting clothes that were not his own. And he was taken to a hospital where he was in delirium for a number of days, and finally he started to come out of it, and he died shortly afterwards.
Oh,
He
wow.
Yeah, he just looked at his hands, raised his hands, and said, "Lord, help my poor soul," and he passed. So there's been all sorts of. There was on October 7th, and we just did a ceremony, which we do because he did spend some time in Providence, Providence, Rhode Island. He was courting the poetess Sarah Helen Whitman, and they were engaged. And he proposed to her in a local cemetery in Providence, and they were going to be married, but parents didn't really agree to pose engagement with Sarah Helen
Right.
Whitman. In fact, the parents said, "Well, we'll allow you to get married on the proviso that our daughter is totally disinherited. So if you want to marry somebody that's poor, go ahead." And I guess the Poe got the best of them. He said, "Yes, I'm not marrying for money. I'm marrying for love. I love your daughter, so I would marry her if she's penniless." So that didn't work. So they did everything they could. Finally, they were able to break the engagement against their will, but he never got over her. He never actually got over her.
Right.
But and he did die at age 40 years old. And we do a my brother and I and our friend Christian, we do a tribute to him every year around the anniversary of his death. And we just did that last Sunday in St. John's Cemetery, which is where he and his fiance used to hang out, and well, they spent a lot of their time there. And also, they were at the Providence Athenaeum. So some people have seen somebody on the steps of the Athenaeum years ago, seen him a number of times, and he resembled Edgar Allan Poe. Somebody came up to him, and one person was actually a college professor, very reputable, and tried to ask him if he was all right, and he just started saying some lines from Poe's "The Conqueror Worm." Started reciting lines from that, and then supposedly he had vanished, and he was never seen again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's so the Providence Athenaeum, a library on Benefit Street in Providence, that's supposedly haunted by the spirit of Poe, and people have seen his apparition there. And Sarah Helen Whitman was several years older than him, but they shared the same birthday, and she was a trance medium too. She used to hold seances and such in her house, and as she was quite lovely, quite beautiful. But as she aged, she would never let her face be seen. She used to put a black veil over her face, and that's how she'd walk around Providence.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of daguerreotype photographs of her and paintings, of course, where you can actually see her. But when she's older, she's always got the veil over her face, and she's got a hood over her face so you can't see her. So she's quite an interesting character too. Though her sister was even more eccentric than she was, and to the point where her sister, I guess, had some kind of mental illness, and they put her sister in a closet while they had company over, and then let her out after the company had gone. Yeah. So that was quite interesting. Some interesting characters that were in Providence years ago. We still do have interesting characters in Providence.
Yeah, I definitely need to get out to Rhode Island, check that out.
Yeah, yeah. This time, any time of year, it's good. I think Rhode Island. There's always some wonderful places to visit. There's the Sprague Mansion, of course, and that's our Civil War governor, Governor Sprague, and there's a lot of intrigue in his family and such like that. And there's, of course, the Conjuring House, of
Yep.
course, very famous. And Carl, my brother Carl, and I, of course, as you know, we have a history in that place as well. You know, having investigated when we're still teenagers, and our chairperson called in Ed and Lorraine Warren when the parent family was having a lot of trouble there. We had discussed this, and our chairperson finally did wind up calling the Warrens in because the family was just they were just especially Carolyn, the mother, was just so terrified and frightened that we agreed that the Warrens would we actually called them just to get their advice on what we should do, what should be our next step. And of course, Ed and Lorraine said, "Well, we'll do more than advise you. We'll actually come down and investigate the place with you." And so that's how Ed and Lorraine Warren became involved, despite what the movie The Conjuring shows.
Right.
Hollywood doesn't always get it exactly right.
No, they don't. I tell people that all the time. It's not what you see in the movie.
Yeah, Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's unfortunate. A lot of people believe that anything they see up on the screen is gospel truth.
Yeah. I can't wait to see the new Conjuring movie coming out, Last Right.
Oh yes, Last Rites. Yes, yes. When's that coming out? You know.
It'll be out September 5th of next year.
Okay, yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna be a good one. That's the final Conjuring movie.
Yeah. So altogether, there'll be actually the Conjuring series. There'll be what? That's the fourth one. It'll be.
Yep.
Yeah. The fourth and final one.
But Tony said they're doing a TV show of The Conjuring that's gonna continue on of Ed and Lorraine's case.
Uh huh. Yes, I've heard that. It's a TV show about the Warrens. And do you know who's going to be in it? Who's playing the
Uh,
character?
I don't know. I hadn't heard who's I'll have to look that up and see.
Hmm.
I know Ed and Lorraine's grandson's gonna be in Connecticut here, I think this weekend.
Oh, okay.
He's at a convention this weekend. He goes back to South America the 28th.
Uh huh. And he's coming up here for a convention, right?
Yep.
Have you met him? Right? You met him before?
Only through podcast. I have
Yeah.
never met Chris in person yet.
Yeah. Chris McKinnell. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm hoping he comes out to Missouri sometime.
That would be great. That would be great if he came out to Missouri and you could meet him in person. He's a really good guy. Really, really good guy. I hope to interview him soon too. And in fact,
Yeah, he,
you know,
he was my
yeah,
very first guest.
he was my who was Chris was.
Yep, he was my very first podcast guest when I started out.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. How many years ago was that?
About a year ago, I hit my year in September
Uh huh.
for being doing podcasting.
That's great. Very great. I'm glad you did get to interview him. And of course, I'm still doing my show, Ghost Are Near. In fact, I have some footage of the Warren's convention that we're recently on, and I've got some footage of you and your dad saying hi and everything. And with your permission, I'll include that in it too.
Yeah, you sure can.
Okay, great, great. Thanks. I'll be glad to do that. Yeah, introducing you and everything like that. Seeing some of the exhibits and everything like that, which are actually from the Warrens Museum, of course.
Yep.
Artifacts from the Warrens Museum.
Especially their new introduction, they got a new piece of artifact in there, that foot they got at the Warren's Paracon,
Uh huh.
the World War One foot, and it's
And
an
what?
actual human remains foot.
Wow. And how did they acquire that?
Somebody brought it to him and said, the lady says, "I want this thing out of my house."
Oh, wow.
I guess her husband had it or something like that.
Yeah.
Us and Raven's Eye have artifacts in the Warren's Occult Museum now too.
Oh, yes, that's right. You donated. Oh, tell your audience about that. The dolls you donated.
The one Julie actually kept the one that's the real most haunted one, but the other one, the one doll with the blonde hair and the red sweater, she would turn and grin at the camera. The one in the little blue and white dress, she would like she would turn her head and look at a camera and grin. Um, and they got the one they our client called the little Annabelle doll.
Uh-huh.
She's only probably about this long. Her eyes have been gouged out, and
That's terrible. Yeah.
anybody that handles her, she gives heart palpitations, or anybody that goes near it. And we acquired them by a client we had gotten called in, and she was a blind lady, and she could only see shapes and shadows and bright lights, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, something she kept seeing a black figure and hearing several noises in her bedroom and stuff going on, and, so she called us in, and she showed us the picture of these dolls, and so we talked to her on the phone about it, so we came in, and we actually got rid of the dolls for her and took them out of the location because she's getting ready to move to England with her husband. She
Yeah.
didn't wanna bring any negative energy with her, so we ended up doing that and getting the dolls out of there, and we did a Paracon with them, and they did a session, which you can see on L&M Paranormal's page, a session with the one doll. They were doing a double Estes with her, and as they were talking, Mike from Epic VIP Events went up there to count them down out of Estes because you only let people the most you should go is only 15 minutes in it because it
Yeah.
takes a toll on your body. Well, as he went up there to count down, the room just went dark. We had the lights off, there was no cloud cover in the sky, nobody walked by the windows.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody seen this, but the camera didn't pick it up. We all seen it with our own eyes, the room just went dark.
Oh, really? Wow.
It just shifted. And so they were getting with that doll for me to take it back where I got it from. It called my name several times. They called Julie by her first and middle name.
Mm-hmm.
Name's been changed, so nobody knew that.
Yeah.
And they Leah was seeing a dark figure because
Yeah.
she's also a medium. She was seeing a dark figure with it.
Oh, she saw a dark figure with it. Wow. So
So
that's an attachment it has, huh?
yep. So Julie ended up keeping that doll, but she talked to Wade about finding that doll and everything, and that Wade told her that it's not human. It's a
Oh,
demon.
really? You could tell it was not human.
Then he said about the other dolls, they were all demonic and haunted. So we turned those over to Nesper after the Warrens Paracon.
Yeah.
In the Warrens Occult Museum, we felt that's the safest place for them.
Probably so. Yeah.
Those artifacts.
Because you wouldn't want to hold on to them for too long, right?
No, I didn't want them, and I didn't want to keep them here at my house much longer. I
Hmm.
had them bound to the case with holy water and blessed salt,
Yeah.
but well, we reached our 2-hour mark. Sure, you're tired.
Well, it's been great chatting with you, though. We always find these fascinating things to talk about more and more.
Yeah.
It's every time we talk, there's always been a lot of things that have happened in between the interim.
Yep.
That's always so cool. That's always so cool. It was certainly great seeing you at the Paracon, and that you
Yeah.
had those dolls you were going to that I did get to see. You were actually going to, donate them to Nesper, and that you're right about that. That probably is the safest place for them,
Yep. And
where Annabelle is housed too, and of course they do have those artifacts regularly blessed. That they have the whole museum blessed from time to time, which is a very good idea.
yep. And Wade takes he does a tremendous job with that.
Great, yeah, he does. He's a great guy. Wade is.
And to see him do that in the museum and explain those artifacts, it's amazing what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got to go in and help him for a little bit in the museum.
Oh, did you while you were there at Gettysburg?
Yep, I was going in there to get him to sign my shirt, and then I he put me to work.
Oh, cool.
I didn't mind doing that, helping him out,
Yeah.
especially that's my family's legacy, so I don't mind helping out. And then seeing all of Ed and Lorraine's tools of their trade there that they had in the center there,
Mm-hmm.
and Ed's paintings and stuff, that got kind of emotional for myself and my dad a little
Did you
bit.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, to see all that
Mm-hmm.
because that was their life's work and their history. And I told Wade, those guys, I was like, I was glad you did that 'Cause Dan wouldn't let Wade do it for years. Wade wanted to do it. Finally, he got Dan in a bad mood, and Dan says, "Fine, you're in charge of it."
That's a good way to get put in charge of something, right?
So, I said to Wade, "I was glad you did that. That people can see that side of Ed and Lorraine."
Yes.
And I said,
Yes.
"They'd be proud of you guys for what you guys put together."
Hmm.
So,
Very good. Well, I want to thank you. It's always a
oh,
pleasure, Russell.
you're
Always a
welcome.
pleasure being on here, and I hope we get to do this again real soon.
Yeah, definitely. We gotta get Carl back on again too.
Yes, yeah, we do have to do that. We do have to do that. Next time we're going to get Carl on too.
Did you tell him yet that we're related?
Yeah, yes, I mentioned that. He's pretty amazed at that. Yeah, we're all really that's good. It's like one big happy family, you know. Thank you, professional paranormal investigators, and everyone. Have a good night. Thank you, Wolf Bev. Appreciate that very
Well,
much.
thank you for coming tuning in tonight too.
Yeah.
We're gonna get ready to close the show out. I thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I thank my guest, Keith Johnson. There won't be a podcast next Friday because I will be at the Marshall Cinema Haunted House, the Madhouse Haunted House. So there won't be a podcast. I'll probably put a replay up. So I will see everybody the Friday after Halloween. We're getting ready to come see us in Trenton on Halloween. We're guest speaking at the Trenton Rotary Club on the paranormal and what we do. Us and Raven's Eye Paranormal will be there. So come on out, check us out, and listen. And we will see you all when I come back after Halloween.